Now that Marvel Studios has released Thunderbolts, audiences are excited to see the Red Guardian, Alexei Shostakov, returning to the big screen. Played by David Harbour, the Red Guardian is a key member of this rather, unconventional team. With his complex history and interesting character arc, needless to say, Alexei takes the center stage. Being one of the more morally gray characters in the Marvel universe, there's no doubt in our minds that we'll end up liking Alexei by the time we step out of the theaters. But what if you're not as familiar with Alexei as you should be? Or what if you want to know more about him? Well, that's what we're here for today. Come with us and learn everything there is to know about Alexei Shostakov in this marvelous Marvel video. Anyways, before we get too deep into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is the Red Guardian? What is his backstory? When it comes to Alexei Andreyevich Shostakov, his history with Marvel is far longer than you might think. This character's first introduction dates back to June of 1967. In the 43rd issue of Avengers, we meet Alexei as the Red Guardian. He was a highly decorated Soviet test pilot. He was quite revered for his skill and bravery on many missions, and this praise and attention from everyone is what wound up getting him noticed by the highest levels of Soviet command. He was a brave Russian soldier who had defied the odds many times, so the KGB knew that if they made Alexei the face of their whole idea, it would be absolutely great for them. So they approached Alexei with a proposal. He would partake in this classified government project, and that would elevate his status from a war hero to the face of the country. Alexei said yes and had to forego everything about his life, his name, his identity, and his marriage to Natasha Romanoff. Yup, the one we know as Black Widow. The Russian government faked his death and told Natasha that Alexei had passed away in a tragic explosion. While Natasha grieved over the loss of her husband, Alexei worked tirelessly to condition his body, reprogram his mind, and become the espionage trump card that the Soviet Union wanted. He became the Red Guardian, the Russian equivalent of Captain America. He bore the iconic star emblem of the Soviet Union on his red and white suit. Now, as the Red Guardian, Alexei carried out covert missions and acted basically as proof that the USSR could actually create heroes just like those in the West. However, things weren't as good as they seemed on the surface. Deep down, Alexei struggled with the isolation. He felt guilty for abandoning Natasha, and eventually he realized that he was not a symbol like the state had promised him. He was more of a pawn. The Red Guardian's story is not that of a soldier, it's the story of a man who turned his life upside down out of patriotism, only to realize there were consequences that backfired on him massively. Is the Red Guardian a super soldier like Captain America? Created during the height of the Cold War as a way of making it seem like the USSR too could produce noble heroes as they had in the West, the Red Guardian is a super soldier as well. However, not in the same way. So we know that Steve Rogers became a super soldier when Dr. Abraham Erskine's super soldier serum was used on him during the Second World War. Alexei's transformation, on the other hand, was a bit different. You see, the Soviets knew about the super soldier serum, but they didn't know how to make it. They didn't have the Krabby Patty secret formula, so they tried to recreate, replicate, and even surpass the super soldier serum. All the experiments led to varied and inconsistent results, but when it was Alexei's case, all of these experiments led to him being turned into a formidable warrior. But he didn't get any superpowers, he just ended up enhancing his abilities to a higher degree. All of these enhancements gave Alexei some key strengths. His strength increased along with his reflexes and durability. His physical abilities were already impressive enough, but now they were even more awe-inspiring. He could stay in combat for a longer period of time and survive powerful impacts with ease, but there was a catch. Well, after the super soldier serum, Steve's mind wasn't altered. Alexei, after his experiments, was changed completely. His psychological profile was much more explosive and volatile. This led to him having intense competitiveness, delusions of grandeur, and erratic behavior, all of which are central to his character in the comic books. When he was created, Alexei knew that he was supposed to be a better version of Captain America. This tone was carried in the comics and even in the MCU. This belief has an effect on most of his actions, if not all of them. Alexei often insists that he actually fought with Captain America, more on that later, which most people think is fabricated or just a delusion. While there are debates about his position on the list of super soldiers, there's no denying that whatever he lacks in leadership and morality, Alexei makes up for by being extremely tenacious, brutal, and resolute. So, in a way, you could say that the Red Guardian is a super soldier like Steve Rogers, but he's a much more flawed and rough around the edges character when compared to Cap. While America's Star-Spangled Champion shows the brighter side of the hero-making that took place during wartime, Red Guardian shows off the darker aspects of hero-making that would chill anyone's bones. How many Red Guardians are there? So here's the thing. Over the years, there have been at least 7 individuals who have taken the mantle of the Red Guardian. Each of them is unique, and they have their very own abilities, motivations, and backstories. And the best part, not once does it seem like the current Red Guardian is trying to emulate the vibes of the previous. Now, each of these Red Guardians shows us more than just the life of the person who stepped up to the role. It also showcases the political climate of the place during that time, and it's quite fascinating to see how their respective eras have changed. Let's start off with Alexei Lebedev. He was the first individual to hold the title of the Red Guardian. While Alexei Shostakov was from the Cold War era, Alexei Lebedev was from the World War II era. While everyone after him had superpowers and whatnot, Lebedev was the Soviet symbol of the resistance. He wore a costume that evoked Soviet ideals and fought with the troops to boost the morale and might of the Soviet soldiers on the battlefield. Sounds really cool, right? But sadly, Lebedev's run in the comic panels wasn't very long. While his appearance might be brief, his importance in the history of Marvel Comics is quite significant. He is actually presented as a foundational figure. He was created as the Soviet answer to the question that Captain America posed. In fact, in the Captain America Patriot storyline, we find out that Lebedev actually interacted with the All-Winners Squad. For those who don't know, this was a wartime superhero group which included Captain America and Bucky. In that short time, you could see the tensions rising among the members, showcasing just how the uneasy alliance between the USSR and the USA worked at the time. As we mentioned, Lebedev was not a superpowered being, but that didn't make him any less formidable as a fighter. Ever since his first appearance in Namor the Submariner Annual Issue 1, he had everyone hooked. Everyone knew he had the zeal, passion, and dedication required to go toe-to-toe with superpowered beings. His story, however, does not have a happy ending. It's said that he was killed in the purges and his existence was wiped away by the very same government that once celebrated him. He is a tragic character, and the Red Guardian who followed him followed those very footsteps of tragedy and guilt, the ultimate price of the title. The second person to have this title was our very own Alexei Shostakov. After him, there was Tanya Belinsky. She's the most fascinating version of the Red Guardian in our books, because when she took on the mantle, it was still the Cold War, and as a mutant and a woman, she had a far different perception of the world than all of her predecessors. She was a renowned neurosurgeon by profession, and in the daytime she was a savior, but when the sun went down, Tanya became the Red Guardian, ensuring justice was upheld. Her mutation allowed her to manipulate energy. This was something new to the Red Guardian because before her, Alexei only had his physical prowess and Soviet training going for him. On the other hand, Tanya could project energy blasts, absorb energy, and survive what would have been a fatal impact with barely any scratches. She was a force to be reckoned with both on and off the battlefield. Eventually, Tanya defected from the Soviet Union. She joined the superhero team known as the Defenders. She's more commonly known now as Starlight, fighting for the causes she believed in and repeatedly putting herself directly against her homeland's authoritarian ways. With Tanya, the Red Guardian went through a change that no one had foreseen. Before Tanya, the Red Guardian was a symbol of Soviet propaganda. However, now, the Red Guardian was also the symbol of someone's agency, and it was a sign of rebellion against oppressive systems. After Tanya, the mantle was taken by Joseph Petkus. Introduced in the 352nd issue of Captain America, he was a special operative who worked for the intelligence agencies in the Soviet Union. He was also a member of the Soviet Supremes. He died while trying to resurrect Vanguard's sister, Lanya. Following his death at the hands of dire wraiths, Krasno Granitsky took the name of the Red Guardian. He was introduced in the 10th issue of Maverick. If you think the name sounds a little familiar, that's because the name was taken from the James Bond novel titled From Russia with Love. This name is the Russianized version of the assassin Donovan Grant. We learn that Granitsky was killed by Alexander Lukin in Captain America in 2004. The 6th Red Guardian was Anton. He debuted in the 2nd volume of Hulk. He was a part of the Winter Guard, but before that he was an engineer and a pilot of the Crimson Dynamo armor, which is sort of like a Russian Iron Man suit. Later, we found out that he was actually a human who managed to transfer his mind into a life model decoy. Dire Wraith killed off Anton too, but since his head survived, it was kept in storage. The last Red Guardian was Nikolai Kirilenko. He is more commonly known by his mutant name, Vanguard. He's the leader of Russia's Winter Guard, which is the Russian equivalent of the Avengers. Much like Tanya, he can also manipulate power, but in a different way. Vanguard has a defensive ability. He can repel kinetic energy, but by being a little creative, Nikolai manages to weaponize his defensive skills to their fullest. He can deflect things thrown his way with ease, whether they're explosions or bullets. His twin sister, Lania Petrovna, also known as Darkstar, is a central figure in the Russian superhero landscape along with him. Together, the siblings have done more than enough for their country. As Red Guardian, however, Kirilenko does not follow in the footsteps of Alexei. Unlike him, Kirilenko actually has a diplomatic approach with militarized actions. In a way, he works with the state, but sometimes the mask slips and he finds himself questioning his government and their motives. His version of the Red Guardian is not a propaganda tool. He's the protector of Russian sovereignty. He is everything all at once, and this complicated blend of roles makes him an interesting hero to follow. He reflects on the changing of international heroism in the Marvel Universe, and he does so with grace. What training and skills does Red Guardian have? At first glance, it's really easy to misunderstand Alexei Shostakov as just enhanced muscle, but if you approach him with that picture in mind, you'd be dead wrong. He is so much more than that. He's a trained Soviet pilot. He is already trained in precision, timing, and high-stakes decision-making. High-stress situations are the ones where Alexei thrives, and there's no doubt about it. He was chosen by the KGB for a reason, and after that, his training expanded to cover hand-to-hand combat, sabotage, and psychological conditioning, along with espionage. In both versions of Alexei we've met so far, one thing has held true. Alexei is a tactician. He may be a bit impulsive at times, sure, but he's very good at what he does. Despite his bravado and bulk, Alexei is quick to adapt to whatever new threats the combat situation poses. This means he can analyze combat situations whilst in the middle of fighting and can decide which aspect of the environment to use to achieve his victory. If that's not talent, we don't know what is. Because of this, Alexei is a wonderful partner to have even behind the scenes. He is the best eyes of the operation you could ask for, but if you go up against him, he's extremely formidable, making defeating him much harder than it seems at first glance. What does Red Guardian's costume/suit include? Red Guardian is a symbol of Soviet sovereignty and propaganda, so of course, his outfit would be symbolic. But don't let that fool you. His outfit is just as functional as it is stylish. With the eye-catching red, white, and silver combinations, the Red Guardian suit has a giant Soviet star across the chest. The color and the design scream patriotism if you are a fellow Soviet, and intimidation if you aren't. The suit was made of impact-resistant and durable materials that wouldn't budge even if there were ballistic attacks or minor explosions happening around our guy. While the Soviets may have designed the suit keeping all of this in mind, in the MCU, we see the suit as a relic of Soviet-era heroism. It's slightly worn down, symbolizing Alexei's fall from grace in a way. In Black Widow, Alexei wears this barely fitting costume again because he now has a new purpose. There, it was shown that the costume had built-in armor plating, flexible fabric for agility, and thermal regulation. The costume was said to have been specifically tailored to fit Alexei's public image and physique, courtesy of the Soviet hero program, so propaganda was kind of sewn into each thread of the costume. What weapons does Red Guardian use? Traditionally speaking, we don't see the Red Guardian with a vast arsenal. He's really not the John Wick kind of guy. He doesn't have a bunch of guns that he carries with him whenever he's about to walk face first into danger. That's because the only guns he needs are his arms. So you get that one? Because Red Guardian's main weapon is his superhuman strength and his hand-to-hand combat abilities. Lame jokes aside, Red Guardian was meant to be someone who didn't need any aid to be a hero. He didn't need weapons, he was the weapon. But over the years, the various iterations of Red Guardian have been seen using different kinds of tools for their missions. Some versions of the Red Guardian even wield a shield, much like Captain America. This shield may be circular or shaped like a star. Joseph Petkus was specifically trained to use the shield as a projectile weapon. Now, in recent years, the shield actually got an upgrade. It now has some actual Wakandan vibranium in it, and this vibranium shield was utilized by Anton and Nikolai when they were the Red Guardian. Nikolai actually got to use an even more augmented version of the shield, which was attuned to his suit. In his hands, the shield was like a boomerang and it always came back to him. On top of that, he managed to turn the shield into a continuation of himself and his powers. While She-Hulk managed to destroy the shield when she attacked the Winter Guard, the shield was later repaired and acquired by our boy, Shostakov. Other weapons include throwing discs and batons. We specifically see the comic book version of Alexei using these whenever he's on a covert mission. The movie version of Shostakov would probably stick mostly to his hands because his brute strength is part of his charm, isn't it? Who are Red Guardian's key relationships? In the MCU, Alexei's main relationships are with Natasha Romanoff, Melina Vostokov, and Yelena Belova. While not her biological father, Alexei serves as Natasha's father figure for the longest time in the movie. Whether this is a result of the shared trauma or the fractured faux family connection, you can be the judge. Melina was the mother of Alexei's faux family, so while their relationship is complex as it was just a cover, they clearly have affection for each other, even if it's hidden under those layers of Cold cold pragmatism. Yelena is his daughter in that fake family. Unlike Natasha, who seemed to take Alexei at arm's length, Yelena shares a love-hate relationship with him. She's quick to point out his flaws and berate him for them, but at the same time, when the hour comes, Yelena always turns to Alexei for help or validation. In the comic book universe, however, Alexei's main relationship was with his wife, Natalia Romanova, who we know as Natasha Romanoff. They had a good relationship and a happy married life, or as happy as it can be, but then the KGB decided that since Shostakov always made a good operative, they would choose him, and that ruined the picture-perfect life that Alexei had. He had to fake his death and leave Natasha behind, something that haunted him and changed him as a person. What teams or organizations is the Red Guardian affiliated with? The journey that the Red Guardian has in the Marvel Universe is not a simple, straightforward one. There are several entanglements with several corporations, some militant, some covert, and in recent days, the government-sanctioned black ops groups like the Thunderbolts. Each of these affiliations shows a different time in Alexei's life, the change in his ideology and his shifting allegiances. Every allegiance shoves his internal battles between identity, redemption, and duty into the light, so let's see how Alexei has changed over the years. His journey began in the KGB. This was his most formative allegiance. He was already a celebrated test pilot and a national hero, so he was just the best candidate. His recruitment into the KGB marked the beginning of his transformation. They didn't just train Alexei, they actually remade him. Everything about his past life was erased, including his marriage to Natasha, which the government annulled without her even knowing. The KGB did not just influence Alexei's physique, they also changed his psyche, turning the man into a tool of the state. He was the walking embodiment of Soviet superiority. He was deployed on special missions with occasional public appearances, all planned meticulously to create an air of pride and fear about him. Red Guardian was not a symbol of heroism like Captain America, he was a weaponized icon of collective ideology. Even though Alexei was loyal to the KGB, his time with them was not fine and dandy. The emotional toll of abandoning his old life started to break him down. The dehumanizing demands of the state didn't help either. The signs of his internal conflict were evident even if he never openly rebelled against the KGB. He finally departed from the agency, which marked the first step for both his and Red Guardian's autonomy. While lesser known, one of the most thematically apt affiliations of the Red Guardian that we have to talk about is his allegiance with the Dark Ocean Society. In the Marvel lore, this organization is named after the real-world historical secret society that originated in Japan. However, in the Marvel universe, it has been reimagined as this global network that is heavily involved in black market weapons trading, biochemical experiments, and political manipulation. They're like the cabal from the Blacklist. Now, Alexei's interaction with the group happened when he was on a mission, which made his internal conflict with the KGB evident. This society was creating chemical warfare agents, hoping to affect all the super soldiers on Earth. Red Guardian set out to infiltrate the group and gather intelligence. In doing so, he learned that this group was not playing with petty Cold War politics. They had big plans, which included destabilizing the entire world. Initially, Alexei was ordered to work with the society and get key intel about their plans. However, as Alexei realized what they were doing, he broke the protocol and burned down one of the major facilities owned by the society. This was obviously not authorized by the KGB. This little outburst marked the very beginning of Alexei reasserting his moral agency. This arc showed that when Alexei hit the moral crossroads and had to choose between personal ethics and blind nationalism, Alexei would choose ethics. He chose his independent thought, which is a rare trait to see when one is a tool of the state. We don't always see Alexei tied to the Winter Guard, but the shadow of the Winter Guard is always present wherever Alexei is. The Russian Avengers have state-approved heroes like Crimson Dynamo, a Russian Iron Man, Ursa Major, a huge bear, Vanguard, and Darkstar. We see Alexei joining the team or consulting with the team as a veteran. He provides tactical guidance and moral support for the younger heroes who are caught in the warfare known as state control. Alexei supports the idea of the Russian superhero group, but he doesn't support the rigid authority structures that the superhero force has to follow, as it often reminds him of the old ways of the KGB. Over the years, we've seen Alexei use this Winter Guard as a platform to mentor younger superheroes, helping them think critically about identity, nationality, and duty so that they wouldn't have to follow the same footsteps that he did. Lastly, his shot at redemption came with the Black Ops team known as Thunderbolts. This group, created by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, is a morally ambiguous version of the Avengers, very much like the Suicide Squad in our book. dialogues. We have anti-heroes, former villains, and other expendables doing the dirty work for the government so that the beloved superhero teams don't get their names dragged into the gutter. Alexei's place in this group is very practical. He's one of the oldest superheroes on the team. He knows the way the world works. Parallel, it's also poetic as it gives him a new purpose, something brighter to look forward to. In the movie, we see him interact with Yelena, Bucky, and the US agent, who's sort of a flawed version of Steve Rogers. These interactions are both funny and emotionally heavy once you notice the thematic resonance. His presence on the team also reminds us that even though he's outdated now, his ideologies have value and wisdom, and he's not beyond redemption. Alexei is not portrayed as just muscle. He's a cautionary tale, something that the new heroes who are coming to the center stage now need to learn from. What is Red Guardian's fighting style? Given his background as a pilot and his training with the KGB, it should come as no surprise that Alexei mostly excels at martial arts. He prefers Sambo and Sistema, two Russian combat disciplines, over other martial arts styles. However, that doesn't mean he'll never indulge in some street-style brawling, because knowing Alexei, that's 100% his style. His endurance really comes in handy when it comes to this kind of brutal fighting style. He can take hits and dish them out just as bad, if not worse, without breaking stride. His aggression and unpredictable moves also help Alexei gain an edge over people who are far stronger than he is. His ability to analyze his surroundings also seamlessly integrates into this fighting style, making Alexei in combat a captivating event to watch unfold. Has the Red Guardian fought Captain America? I know you guys have probably been wondering about this one for a really long time now. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is a bit more complicated than that, though. In the comics, Alexei actually challenged Captain America when they were on a Cold War-era mission. He desperately wanted to prove Soviet superiority and thought the duel would be the best way to go about it. The battle was fierce, and maybe Alexei would have won. However, he left the fight mid-match to save Natasha from an explosion. In the MCU, however, when Alexei talks about fighting Steve Rogers, the time just doesn't match up at all. It could be that he's a little confused about how obsessed he is with the legacy of Captain America, but who knows? Even if the MCU Red Guardian never goes up against Steve, that rivalry will always remain a defining part of his character. Marvelous verdict! Thunderbolts took a chance on Alexei, and we hope that you guys do too. Red Guardian is a tragic, comical, complex figure who ended up becoming the embodiment of the highs and lows of the super soldier myth instead of just being the Russian answer to Captain America. No matter what Alexei is doing, he's always trying his best to survive, and that's worth consideration when you're thinking of giving someone a redemption arc. Unfortunately, that's all we got for you this time, but don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let us know what you guys thought of Red Guardian and Thunderbolts in the comments section down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.